return of all of the Chatufim and all the hostages. In Kabbalah, Parshat Noach doesn't always work. So yeah, if the recording is spotty, this is your sign to come in person next time, if you can. Family plus vegetation, so all the 4 kingdoms are present on this earth: the mineral life, plant life, animal life, and human life. And then from Noach, Hashem just says, I'll create a new world. And after that, Noach is scared to have more children because he doesn't want children to be born, only to be destroyed again. Hashem says, I will never create another flood, and the sign for you will be a rainbow. So we have a lot of questions we're going to cover today. First of all, what is the relevance of the flood to our life? On one level, when we read the Parsha, we're reading 2 things. We're reading the history, but it says anyone who reads the Torah as history, as something that happened a long time ago, is missing the point. So yes, we're reading what actually happened, but that's just the surface layer. On another level, we're reading about a story that is happening to all of us all the time. So the flood of Noach is not just a story that happened to Noach thousands of years ago. It's a story that we go through every single day of our lives constantly. We all experience floods in our lives. We all experience, we feel like we're drowning in something, and for everyone it's something else. For many people, the Alter Rebbe's famous mimer about Mayim Rabim, about the torrents of waters, he says it's a mashal, a parable to the floods of the financial worries that we all have. The worries about where we're going to live, paying rent, finding another house to live in, having enough parnasa to support our lifestyle. That's something that constantly plagues us. And that's one of the floods that takes up so much, that floods us all the time. But there's more. There's health. Worrying about the safety of our children on the front lines. Worrying about the safety and health of all of our children. Worrying about our own health, physical health, mental health, emotional health, spiritual health. Worrying about our relationships, tumultuous, chaotic relationships. And there's always something flooding us, coming at us, threatening to drown us or to pull us under. And really, the flood is anything, all those things that threaten to smother and drown the godly spark, the nefesh elokit, the piece of Hashem inside of us that is crying and just wants to express herself and be one with Hashem, but she's drowned by the overwhelming anxieties and pressures of life. So whatever it is, there's always another, for every one of us, another anxiety, another thing to worry about. And sometimes there's not even something on the outside that's stressful, or but it's from the inside. There's just general anxiety and waking up stressed and overwhelmed about the situation of this world, about being able to live as a soul in a world that's full of darkness and chaos and confusion. Just what's happening, the existence, the state of the world of Galus, of the hiddenness of Hashem, the Ha'elem, and what happened since October 7th. Just living and waking up and reading the news already is enough to flood and drown us. If you open up your phone at any social media account and Instagram, you already have floods of water threatening to drown us. And there's a beautiful teaching in Shir Pasuk from Shlomo Melech and Shir Shirim that says, Mayim Rabim, flooding waters, lo yochlu lekhabos esa'ava, won't quench the love that I have in my soul. And this is the deeper teaching of the Baal Shem Tov. So what do we do when we're learning this story of Noach and we're relating it to our own constant feeling of being flooded in life? And we look at these floods as something negative. So there's so many deep lessons we're going to learn from this. And the first thing the Baal Shem Tov says is, first of all, the Chassidus said is, first of all, these waters, although they seem like the worst thing in the world, they're flooding and drowning our neshama and our nefesh, our godly spark, and they're tearing us down, and it's making me sometimes so paralyzed with anxiety that I feel like, how can I live another day of existence in this scary world? At the same time, he says that the source of these waters is chesed, because mayim in its essence is good, and it's only chesed from Hashem. And the reason Hashem sends us these waters is not because God is some twisted, God forbid, trying to hurt us, but it's the exact opposite. Hashem sends us rain as a chesed, but sometimes to us, it feels like a flood, like a negative flood. And to us, it feels like it's crashing down at us. But in its source, first of all, we have to know that it's chesed from Hashem. And even when it comes down to this world as challenges and as chaos and as flooding and anxiety in our life, it is still only there. The purpose of it, even though in the moment it is difficult, in the moment it is painful, in the moment it's sometimes debilitating and we feel like I can't go on, the purpose of it is for our own good, is for our healing, for our cleansing, and to bring us to a higher level. It's a higher level of chesed. And we actually, this is my first time seeing this pasuk, or hearing this teaching on this pasuk in this week's parsha. In Perek Zayin, in Bereshit Perek Zayin, pasuk Yud Zayin, in this week's parsha, it says, Vayehi hamabul arba'im yom. The mabul was 40 days ala aretz, on the earth. Vayirbu hamayim, and the waters were multiplying. Vayisu esa teva, and they lifted the teva. Vatara me'al aretz. The waters weren't there to drag us down. The waters were there to actually lift up the teva. The ark got lifted up by the water. They're there to uplift us. Vatara me'al aretz, and it was lifted from above the earth. And the point of these waters, the point of these challenges or these flooding, even the waters that flood us, are to actually inspire us to seek reconnection, to look for something deeper, and to lift us even higher than our previous state. And by having these challenges in our life, we actually reach a much higher level. Like we see that the waters actually lifted the teva and lifted the ark. So that's message number one, to know that these challenges in our life and to see them for what they are, that they're chesed from Hashem, that are actually here to uplift us and here to challenge us to look for something deeper. And without these challenges, we would just be complacent with living such a superficial, blah existence without any meaning, without any connection, without searching for more, without searching for real bitachon, for real trust, for real emunah, for real connection with others and ourselves. So that's number one, and it's easier said than done. In the moment, it's easier to say it now, but in the moment to re-inspire us is much harder. And then comes the next teaching. The Baal Shem Tov says that what do we do when these waters, in the moment, when we're so flooded and overwhelmed, right? And from the outside, yes, they're for a higher level, but in the moment when we're feeling so flooded and I can't get out of bed and I just feel so paralyzed, that's the word I was looking for, by these floods of waters in my life, wherever they may come from relationships, from outside, from stresses, from expectations of the world and demands, or from my own insecurities, my own feelings of not being enough, from my own fears of whatever I'm worried about in my life. What do I do in that moment? And that's when the Baal Shem Tov says, look at what did Hashem tell Noach to do when he was going to bring the flood? What did Hashem tell Noach? You tell me. Bo el ha-teva. He said, come to the teva. And I'm going to teach at least 3 beautiful, deep life messages that we can take from this idea of Bo el ha-teva. Number one, that reminds me of Parshas Bo. When Hashem said to Moshe to come into Paro's inner palace, he didn't say lech, like it normally says go, he says bo. And the difference between bo, which means come, and lech is just go, is that lech is I'm sending you, which has room, a command, I'm sending you, and bo means come with me, right? Either you go, but bo means we're going to go together. So number one is remembering that bo, Hashem is with us always. Even in these struggles, we're not alone. We always have Hashem with us. We just came out being surrounded by the teva, the ark of the sukkah, where we felt and we were supposed to internalize and learn to feel Hashem's constant presence with us. So number one is remembering we're not going alone. Hashem is saying, Bo, come with me to the teva, to this refuge, to this place of teva protection. And remembering where Hashem is with us reminds us that in our hardest times, we're not alone. If I'm alone, right? Gam ki eilech, like David HaMelech says, Begeit Salmaves, Lo irara, I won't be afraid, even if I'm in the most darkest point of Jewish history. If I'm looking around at what's happening now, it's one of our darkest moments. I'm not going to be afraid. Why? Because you're Bo, you're telling me you're with me. So that's number one, the message of Bo el teva. Then we come to the other thing, the teva. What is the teva? The teva means the ark. It also has 2 other meanings. Teva means an ark. It means a box. If we look in the future parshas, we're going to see a lot of other boxes where it speaks about Avram putting his wife Sarah in a box, Yitzchak putting Rebecca in a box, Yaakov putting his daughter Dinah in a teva, in a box. So a teva is a box, a surrounding, like the sukkah in a way. And it's also, in Hebrew, teva means a word. The word, a word. A teva means a word.
Word?
Yeah. Another mila and teva. Yeah, mila is a word and teva is a word. If you look it up, a teva is a word. So it says come into the words. So here's what the message for us is. Noach went into a physical ark. But where do we go when we're faced with the floods of our life? Into the words of the teva, to davening. Number one is, the Baal Shem Tov says, the word teva means word, so go into the words. Right? Look at the word of the word itself, which actually means words. When you are drowning in life, go to protect yourself with the words. And my husband reminded me of this crazy story we just heard. We were at a October 7th memorial event at the Reshit Gancha here, and they brought the Rav Schatz, which I thought it meant a Rav named Schatz. I did not know Rav Schatz meant the head of security of his community. So someone pointed out, he's like, that's the wife of Rav Schatz who's speaking today, of the security of the yeshuv called Nir Oz, one of the yeshuvim that was attacked on October 7th. And he shared what happened in their kibbutz. It was, if I knew, I don't think I would have gone to the event, but I did go, Shkacha Pratis, and one of the things he shared was so powerful that after they realized what was happening, he told his wife and sons to lock themselves in the mamad, to lock it from the inside. They had a lock in it, even though it was illegal to put a lock, because they said it would compromise making it airtight in case of a nuclear threat. So he told them to lock it anyways. And he went out, and his son said, and what normally I'm like, if that happened to me, first of all, he was trying to reach security to come, like backup from the army, and no one was answering. So if I was his wife, I'm like, I would just be calling, I had a phone, I would just be calling the army nonstop, connections that I have to send help. But instead, she's this woman who is not religious at all. It's a very, very secular yeshuv. He said it's the Mea Sharim of the secular of Chilonim.
Which one was it?
Near Oz. And he said that her son said that from the minute they went in and she heard about the threat, she opened a Tehillim, and for 12 hours there was no one to talk to. She just said Tehillim. And I was literally crying when I heard this. Everyone, there was no dry eye. This woman who's not even religious knew more than me. It was a Rebbitzin. I feel like in that moment, I'm just like, I would call backup. Someone, send somebody. I have a friend in the army in that unit, send backup. They didn't know what was happening to other people. They thought it's just their yeshuv. And she literally disengaged from all that and just said Tehillim. And for 12 hours, they said there was no one there. There was no one to talk to. Her sons couldn't talk to her. She had 2 older sons. There was no one there. It was such a beautiful, special reminder, and that's what it means, bola teva, that when you're suffocated or drowning, we have the words of tefillah, the words that to protect us. We have the words of Tehillim. And a year ago, from today, literally, there was an event that the Kesslers made for the wives of Chayalim to have a space to have coffee and at Papa Melech, and they asked, the one day they had so many signups, they asked me and my husband to come help entertain the kids. The Kesselmans, yes. I was like Amy and Dove, right?
Yeah.
And so they asked me and my husband to entertain the kids one day. So as we were there, I was speaking to one of the women there, and it was literally a week after October 7th, and she was home. Her husband's on the front lines. She has 5 little boys at home. They were so traumatized, they wouldn't even leave her side. So her kids couldn't even be in the babysitting because they literally were all holding on to her. So I said, how do you sleep at night? Because I'm not even sleeping at night. My husband is home. And after that, so she said that when she's alone at night, she says Tehillim, and she pictures the words of Tehillim protecting her home and surrounding and protecting her home, and that's what helps her fall asleep. And so that was such a powerful reminder of the power of our words that Hashem gave us to come into the words of Tefillah, of Tehillim. And the Baal Shem Tov says also Bo'el Teva, to come into the words of the word Bo'el Teva is also the words of Torah. That when we have the emunah bitachon inside of us, but we forget it. And so Torah reminds us, every time we come into a shir and learn Torah, it reminds us about our connection to Hashem. It reawakens that reminder of the bitachon and emunah that we have, that Hashem is with us and surrounding us and protecting us. My third teaching on this word of Teva is more literal. You could take it or leave it. I just thought it was cute. Is that Teva is a box. And similar to the idea of the Tehillim surrounding you, there's the concept, there's a teaching that when we want to picture Hashem's protection, we picture, where's this from? We have the 4 angels surrounding us. Mimini, Michael, I forget the source, Misrali Gabriel, Milfanai Uriel, Machorai Raphael, V'al Roshi Shechinat Kel. It's B'Shem Hashem Elokei Yisrael. I forget where the source of it is from, but it's a tefillah, and we ask Hashem to protect us. So sometimes when you're in danger, you imagine Hashem protecting you from all sides. And this is reminiscent of so many things in our history where we have to just picture and remind ourselves of Hashem's protection, like the Ananim, the clouds that protected us, that we weren't alone. We were in the desert, in a foreign place, being attacked from the bottom, from scorpions, from the top, from the sun that could kill us, from all sides, from enemies and arrows, and Hashem, remembering that Hashem constantly protects us. And it wasn't just then, it was always. Over there we saw it physically, but always we have Hashem's protection all over us, and we need to come into Torah to remind ourselves of this surrounding protection that we have. And Sukkot, what we just came out of, is a time that Hashem says, for 1 week I want you to feel my protection from all sides, my embrace. You're always in my loving embrace. And remember that no matter what you're going through, you're always in my embrace. You're not alone, and I'm holding you. So you can let go about worrying and just focus on what you need to focus on. So be in the ark. Don't worry about what's happening outside. Worry about your neshama. Worry about lighting up your neshama, about reconnecting your neshama, about strengthening your soul so that you have the fortitude to come out into what needs to face what needs to come on the outside. So before we could face the floodwaters, which means what do we need to do to face all the torrents of anxiety and things that are pulling us down? We need to first anchor ourselves and remember that A, it's from Hashem. It's there to bring us higher, to bring us to a higher level. B, we're not alone. Hashem is with us. We have tools. When Hashem is connected and we have the emunah bitachon, we can now enter those things and look for the good in those moments. Then we can look for and say, what am I supposed to gain from this? How can I be more connected? How can this bring me to a higher level? Then we could face the floodwaters around us and look at them for the good that they are. But first, we can't go back out into seeing the good of the flood of the Mabul, which actually was. We learned that the Mabul wasn't a punishment. It wasn't Hashem annihilating the world. Because one of the questions they said is, it was such a destructive way. It was such a waste of resources and water. Hashem could have just killed the people who were bad. He didn't have to flood the whole world and then have to restart from scratch. Or Hashem could have easily, what Chassidus says is that Hashem constantly recreates every human being into existence, every creation into existence through his words. Hashem could have just stopped saying the words and then they wouldn't have stopped existing. There was no need to bring such a catastrophe. And we learn in Chassidut that the flood wasn't a punishment only. It was on a much deeper level, a cleansing, to bring the world to a higher level of spiritual refinement. It was a cosmic mikvah, so to speak. It was Hashem redunking the world in the mikvah of 40 days of 40 nights, which reflects the 40 sa'ah, which is the measurement minimum requirements for a kosher mikvah. It was Hashem putting the world in the whole mikvah to refine us, to bring us to a higher level. But to see that, first we have to go into the teva. We need to go inwards, strengthen our neshama, cut out what's going on in the rest of the world. And this reminded me what my friend, who's a therapist from the Zayit, Yael Miller, told me that she said that number one, you have to go into this ark and protect yourself from hearing what the rest of the world is saying. Just cut yourself off. She said she told all her kids they can't watch the news, they can't read the news, they can't go on social media. My friend who had a baby 3 days before October 7th, her husband was called on October 7th with a 3-day-old. He missed his son's bris. He told her, whatever you do, don't read the news, don't listen to anyone who wants to tell you the news. For 5 months, she still didn't know what happened. She still had no idea, to protect her. And it doesn't mean to live in a bubble of oblivion, right? It means not to. What it means is to go first into this arc of protecting ourselves. So my friend who the psychologist told me this is the day after, she said a lot of us feel like we need to read their stories or go listen to the stories of what happened because we owe it to the victims. But she said that we don't owe it to them yet. Yes, in the Holocaust, right, it wasn't during the Holocaust that it's the time to listen to the stories. It's after, when it's fully over. We're still in this war. As long as the war is going on, we don't owe it to anybody to listen. Not only that, the victims don't want us to be pulled down, because when we go and hear the stories or we listen to the news of what the rest of the world thinks about us, it brings us into the Mabul. It takes us out of the ark, into the floods, into a deeper darkness. The victims want us to strengthen our neshama. It's actually dangerous for our neshama to hear the news. Every time I listen to any news, anything on social media about what anti-Semitism, what's going on in the world, it's actually affecting the health of my soul. And so it's bringing us into a darker place. So for the sake of the victims, what they want for us is to be strong, to be able to be spiritually strong, mentally strong, to be able to fight back and to light up the darkness rather than be sucked into the darkness. And one of the best ways to do this is to protect ourselves from hearing anything we don't need to hear. Anything we don't need to know on a day-to-day basis is not right now. Right now is not the time. After the war is over, after we've won, then we'll hear their stories and we'll remember their stories. But right now we don't need to, if it's going to cause us any more darkness in our soul, in our health, and our mental health, and being strong for our family, and being persevering and overcoming the darkness and adding light in the darkness, it's the opposite of what we need to be doing right now. Anyways, that was a side tangent. What we need to do is worry about our neshama and adding in more light, and in our own, starting from our own inner self, creating light and connection and emunah and bitachon, and then spreading that to our families, and from there, like the Beis Hamikdash, where the light starts from inside and then it reflects to the rest of the world around us, and it creates a space of a light where people could come to us for strength and resilience and uplifting. So we said, come to the teva is coming into the words of Tehillim, the words of Tefillah, into the words of Torah to remind us about our emunah and bitachon. It's coming into the presence of knowing we're not alone, where Hashem is surrounding us. And one more of my thoughts was idea of breath. That later next week we're going to learn about Cheshvan and the physical bodily sense of every month, according to Sefer Yesira. In the month of Cheshvan, it is our neshima, our ruach, our breathing, and our smell, and the power of our neshima, which means neshima is to breathe, and our neshama. That's the way we can access our neshama. So the way we create an arc or elevation for our neshama is the words of tefillah. But how do we get our body in line? Because we can't really access our neshama if our body is flooded, and our bodies get flooded with emotion. And when our body's flooded with anxiety or cortisol or fight or flight, and we're reading the news, and that's what happens to me every time I read the news and I hear the anti-Semitism, I get flooded. And then it's very hard to access our neshama. And we learn literally in this month of Cheshvan that the way to access our neshama is through neshima, through breath. That our bodies, and this is backed up by science. And so the teva that I think about, the first step of entering the ark, if you can't access your neshama on that higher level, is first like what I call box breathing. And this is the breathing that they teach the Navy SEALs. They use this because they're expected to also be in fight or flight, but also calm down and go to sleep. They learn that. They teach us the soldiers in the army. How are they supposed to sleep at night in Lebanon and in Gaza? They learn these breathing techniques that help them access their inner calm. And so one of the most common breathing techniques that firefighters, Navy SEALs, and soldiers all learn is called box breathing, because it's so simple and it allows your body to access its I'll tell you the science of it in a moment. But the box breathing is super simple. It's inhaling for 4, holding for 4, holding the breath for 4, exhaling for 4, and then holding the exhale for 4. And then repeating that until your body is calm and you're falling asleep. And it works like magic. So that's number 1. That's the teva. That's for me coming into, that's just my cute thought, not backed up by Torah, but coming into breath, our neshima, that allows us to access our neshama, and then we can take our neshama into words of Torah, surrounding ourselves with the protection of the Tehillim. And the Tehillim not only protects us, but we learn that the Tehillim protects all of our brothers and sisters. And it sounds so weird, like how could my Tehillim in my house help like this woman whose husband was outside, almost killed multiple times, only through, he says, literally there was just nisim. This Rav Shatz who was speaking, who's completely secular, said there was nothing to describe it other than nisim. He said that they had 200 terrorists and 3 security personnel. 3! And no one came from the army. And the terrorists were literally throwing grenades at a bush. He says, I don't know what they saw in that bush, but they spent almost all of their ammunition attacking a bush. He has miracle after miracle that happened, and it's without a doubt, clearly in his mind and all of mine, his wife's Tehillim. So how does someone's Tehillim affect someone somewhere else? And one of the beautiful metaphors is that it seems unusual, but if you think about, remember that Am Yisrael is one unit. We're one body. We're literally made up of one body. And so when you learn about healing our body, how could I take a pill? If I have a headache, taking a pill in my mouth, how will that help my head? Because I'm one body. So when I take a pill in my mouth, it affects my whole body. If my whole body is aching and I strengthen my core, my whole body, right? We all do Pilates, some of us, and you strengthen your core, your whole body benefits. When you strengthen one part of your body or you heal one part of your body, and we all know the power of, if you have a toothache, your whole body suffers. And so because us and all of Am Yisrael are one unit, if I strengthen myself and my connection to Hashem, my emunah, my bitachon, and say Tehillim, then all of Am Yisrael is protected. It protects my entire body. My whole body becomes, and that's why the soldiers on the front line, even the secular ones, there's videos going out since the beginning of the war. They're saying what you can do for us is just daven and say Tehillim and do more mitzvos. And it's crazy, the correlation between our spiritual health and our bodily health is so united. They're literally saying there was a shortage of, remember last year when the war started, there was a shortage of tzitzit and chitases and mezuzot in the whole Israel. They had to sit there there was people making tzitzit because there wasn't enough tzitzit. And you think, like, what does our tzitzit have to do with winning the war? We need more weapons from America. But this is our weapons. When we strengthen our neshama, it strengthens our body, right? We're all connected. And when we strengthen our cells, our body, and our soul, all of Am Yisrael is protected and stronger and in that muscle of a body. Anyways, why did I even say that? Where was I at?
I did that yesterday. You did that yesterday.
What did you do?
Dyed tzitzit.
You made tzitzit still?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yesterday.
Where?
Tuesday mornings every week.
Every week?
Zayed.
Wow, that's so nice.
This woman learned how to do it, and she got really
Wow.
good at it. So now she teaches it, and Wednesday it's in Neve Danielle.
That's beautiful.
It's really,
Oh, I was going to say the signs of the breath. Okay.
Oh, sorry.
So the one breathing technique is the box breathing. And there's another general breathing technique, which is, in general, focusing on lengthening your exhale. When you inhale for whatever, 5, exhale for 6. And we want our exhale to be longer than the inhale. And any type of calm or slow breathing, it causes your vagus nerve to signal your brain to activate your parasympathetic nervous system, which is your rest and you're relaxing, and to ease the sympathetic nervous system, which is your fight or flight or freeze, which is your cortisol levels. So literally, as you lengthen your exhale, so if you inhale for 5, I exhale as long as I can and slow down my exhale or hold my exhale for even double. You want to work it slowly. So breathe slowly, naturally, until you can lengthen your exhale more and more, so you can signal your body that everything's okay, that you're safe, and you can calm down, and then you can access your neshama and your inner world when your body is no longer flooded. So that was my cute thought about the box of the breath, the box breathing. Okay, now, so we said Boa la Teva, coming to the Teva. One more thing that was really nice about Boa la Teva is that we need to actively enter into the teva. It's not just automatic. It's like bo means don't just like come, actively create this ark, create this teva. And what the teva is inside of us, it reminds us that no matter how flooded we are, how much we're flooded or drowning in whatever's going on in our lives, inside of us is this ark. We all have this teva. The teva is within every one of us. It's an island of refuge, a space inside of us that's an island that we can always escape to. That part of us is our neshama that is completely unaffected by whatever tumultuous things is flooding on our outside. It's an island that we can access inside of us. All we need to do really, or not all, is commit to it, is decide to actively enter that space, to search for that island inside of me, go very deep inside of me and say, where is that island? Where is that space? How can I breathe until I find that teva, that safe space of protection, of Hashem's protection, of bitachon, of trusting in Hashem. So it takes work to actively enter the teva. It took Noach a year fear to enter the teva, right? Reminders. But whenever we're flooded, we can remind ourselves that we have that teva inside of us. We have that refuge. It reminds me of the Ari Miklat. It says that when you're chased by those who want to bring you down, you could run and flee to your refuge, this inner space. And we constantly see this idea that we have this, the Miklat is the city of refuge that you can run to when you're chased by those who want to kill you. So we have, when we're chased and flooded, we have to chase and search for that space, that island or that ark that rises above. That when we go inside that space and we surround ourselves with this protection, we can not only not be drowned by the waters, but the waters will actually bring us higher. Well, like the words, like it says, "V'taram me'al haaretz," we're uplifted from aretz, which is like things that pull us down, earthly things, materialistic things. When, for even in a small way, when I'm feeling flooded by physical materialistic things like shopping, like things I need in my house, making it nicer, right? All the things like the flooding, and I remind myself there's such a, like, to intentionally enter my teva. And what I do, one of the things I do is when I'm flooded by materialistic things, which happen way more in America, but even in Israel, sometimes I'm like, oh, I need to get a new wardrobe, and I just get flooded by all the physical things that need to be nice in this world. I write down my values. I say, what are the values that I have that are most important to me? And when I write them down, it's like me actively choosing to enter my inner world, my neshama, that part of me that's above all of the floods. And usually my values, when I start writing them down, nowhere on the values is having nice materialistic things. Nowhere on the values is having a nicer house or nicer clothing, or like nowhere. I mean, it's like spending time with my family, connecting to my neshama, having bitachon, mostly being a kind person, being there for people who need me. And I do this exercise a lot. And then I write, what are my most proudest accomplishments? And when I go through those things, nowhere in that list usually anywhere is my nice things. It's usually nowhere. We're at the very, very bottom. And that helps relieve me from that floods. It's actively choosing to enter in that teva, committing to find that island that's above the floods, like the Mayim Rabim are literally considered the floods of materialistic things from this world that threaten to drown us. And when I write those values, it helps realign me to my inner teva and to be safe from the things that want to pull me down and say, you're not successful enough, you're not making enough money, you're not, you're not whatever, and you're like, you don't have enough, people coming to your share, whatever it is, those things that are so external that are nowhere on my value list and nowhere in my core accomplishments. And those things really help you to enter your teva. So I have like a list of prompts I make, and those prompts when I feel flooded and like I'm in the wrong path and I'm being worried about the wrong things, those prompts help realign me. So what are my deepest values? What am I most grateful for? What are my biggest accomplishments in life? What do I want to be remembered for if after 180 years? And those things help realign me and enter into this healing teva and free me from being drowned by all of the materialistic things that the world wants to convince me is important, like on social media and everywhere I go, especially in America, right? Even more. Do we have time? Okay. So in very short, I'll share the rainbow theory and the reason that what the rainbow really teaches us on a deeper level. So we mentioned a little bit ago that Hashem could have destroyed the Mabul. The flood is not just a way for Hashem to punish the world for their evil deeds. It was actually a way for Hashem to cleanse the world. And we see this in the very, very deep way that there's a medrash. Did I share it with you? I'll read. I think it's on your source sheets. My husband helped me find it. Oh, I brought it for you in English. Okay, let's read it. There's a beautiful midrash. It teaches the following. I'm going to read it for you. It's the last source. Rabbi Abba, it's Medrash Rabbah, Bereshis 1:9. Rabbi Arba Bar Kahana said, in the name of Rabbi Levi, the Holy One, Kodesh Baruch Hu, said, Yikavu Hamayim, which means, it was talking about when Hashem split the waters. This is a Medrash when Hashem split the waters on the third day of creation. Before that, the whole world, so let me backtrack a little bit. We learned that there was 3 times that the world was submerged in this cosmic mikvah. Number 1 was before the third day of creation, the entire dry land existed. Hashem created all of, the dry land didn't get created on the third day, it existed, but it was submerged in water, right? All of the creation was created on the first day of creation, Bereshis bar Elokim et hashamayim v'haaretz, and on each day Hashem kind of put things in its place. So it was all mushed up together, surrounded by water. On the 4th day, Hashem didn't create, if you look at the text, the sun, moon, and stars, He just put them in the right place in the sky. They were all mushed up, and He took them and hung them up in the heavens. So on the third day of creation was, before that, prior to the third day of creation, it literally says that the world was submerged in water. The world was submerged in this mikvah of Hashem, which was reminiscent of the womb, which is being included, the child's being surrounded by the water. The world was in this womb of God, surrounded by the knowledge of Hashem, in this oneness of God. Then it emerged from this womb on the first day of creation. 10 years later, 10 generations later, 1,000 and a millennia and a half later, Hashem says, this is what the Medrash says, that I'll summarize it for you. It says that there is a mashal of a king who built a palace and had deaf mute servants in it, and they would every day be so loyal to the king and do everything the king wanted. And the king said, if they could speak, wouldn't they serve me even more, right? So the king then found a way to have speaking residents. He found a way to cure them, and now they're able to speak. And then what happened was that they all started to rebel. Now that they could talk, they started to rebel against the king. And so the king said, let me go back to servants who are mute, and he kicked out those servants and put mute servants. And the Nimshal says this is what happened when before Hashem emerged the world from its cosmic mikvah, from the womb. Everyone was one with God. Before the third day of creation, everything was one with Hashem. Obey the commandment of God. Since Hashem created us, all we've done is rebel. 10 generations later, we're completely corrupt. Hashem said, let me return them back into my state before they could speak and rebel and have the independent existence. There was no independent existence until the third day of creation, until that independence from the womb of God, right? There's no independence of our fetus until it's left our body. And Hashem says, let me return them to oneness with me so that they will no longer rebel. And so that's what the Midrash says. That's one of the sources of Hashem returning, but it wasn't meant to be that way, right? Hashem didn't keep us in this cosmic mikvah forever. It was let them return into this womb, be cleansed, like the mikvah, be purified and elevated to higher level. And then now something changed, and I'll get to that in a moment. The third time that the world was ever going to be in this cosmic mikvah is when Mashiach comes. This is the last source I brought you, I think, where it says, Umala haaretz Dea es Hashem. Yeah, in the Navi, the prophet Yeshayahu says in Parak Yud Aleph Pasuk Tes, La yira'uv la yashchisu b'chol har kachi. There'll be no evil. There won't be any destruction in my whole har kachi, my holy mountain. Ki mala haaretz dei es Hashem, because the world will be filled with the knowledge of Hashem. Kamayim liyam mechasim, like water covers the earth. It says Hashem will resubmerge us, not physically in water, but in the spiritual knowledge of the oneness of Hashem. So water represents in Chassidut and Kabbalah this deeper knowledge of oneness of Hashem. When you're in water, and that's really what the mikveh is all about, that when you're in the womb, you're one with your source of life. You're receiving you're physically and tangibly aware of the source of everything of life, that everyone comes from Hashem, that every single thing in person you experience is directed by God. And that's what we were before the independent existence of the creation of the world. That's how Hashem put us in the times of the flood. And that's how it is every time we go in the mikvah, we have this reminder of being completely submerged in Hashem's oneness. And that's why this mikvah is that pivotal step to any transformation, any deep transformation, from a convert to become a Jew, for a woman to become a tahora, for a neshama as it passes to the next life, the body is submerged in the mikvah. All of these huge transformations are accompanied by the mikvah, because the mikvah is that submission, that bittul, that complete surrendering. The words of mikvah are, this is what I taught in the mikvah class in part 2, that the words of tevilah is interchangeable or can be rearranged as bitul, which is complete surrender, completely surrendering to this knowledge and embrace of God. Anyways, going back to what does this have to do with the story of the flood?
Everything.
And the rainbow, everything. So we have this idea of the flood. Hashem says, I'm not coming to punish the world. The world, what would happen before the flood was that not only, if you look at the text, not only were the people corrupt, but the land itself was corrupt. The whole earth had to be not destroyed, but elevated. The earth was so corrupt that it was incapable of healing itself, of having any kedusha or spirituality absorbed in its earth. So much so that Hashem told Adam that the earth was so hard that they literally couldn't work the land. They weren't able to work with the land. Noach, after the flood, it says one of the reasons Noach's name was Noach is because he created the pitchfork, to help work with the land. The land was coarse and hard. The animals were corrupt. The humans were corrupt. The whole entire universe was corrupted because it was unrefined spiritually. There was too many layers of coverings of God. It was too megusham, which means gashmiu, too coarse physically, that it was unable to absorb any. It's like when you're talking to someone and there's no one to talk to. There's nothing to get through to them. All experienced that conversation where there's just no one to talk to. So no amount of teshuvah that Noah could get them to do would be possible, because there was no one to talk to. They were completely blocked, spiritually blocked. That's the word. They were spiritually blocked. And so what the Mabul was set out to do spiritually in Chassidut was to literally cleanse and elevate every time there's a mikvah, to put the world in a mikvah, so it would be spiritually elevated. And that's really what the mikvah is, to bring us to a spiritual higher level of elevation. So just like when you put a non-kosher vessel in the mikvah, and what comes out is a new vessel, the world, Hashem literally dunked the entire world in this giant mikvah, and what emerged, it literally says that Noach saw an olam chadash, a new world, a completely brand new world, that now this world was no longer spiritually blocked. Now this new world, was capable of absorbing kedusha, of absorbing godliness. And that was the first stage. The flood was stage number 1. This continued. The spiritual ability to absorb and retain godliness was only complete at Har Sinai. How many generations later? This is about 1,000 years later at the Har Sinai. Only then did Hashem fully remove that barrier from spiritual and physical. So although the world could somewhat receive teshuvah, that there was still a barrier between the higher and lower worlds, and that meant that even though they could do mitzvahs in this world, they could do teshuvah, it was temporary, it wasn't permanent. So that's why physical objects couldn't absorb kedusha until the next stage, which was Matan Torah, and we continue in this long shift of avoda of getting the world more and more spiritually refined and sensitive to be able to absorb kedusha. And then when Mashiach really is the world, the same world that we live in, but a world that reflects godliness, a world that the Rambam says, that the difference between Gola and Geula, Galus and Gula is just the Aleph. It's the same world, but with the awareness, with the da'as, with the knowledge of Hashem. It's like the Galus, Gola is Galus, Geula has the Aleph. We're living in this world, but imagine we all lived in this world, every creation, and we had the Aleph, the awareness of oneness of Hashem, and we can look all around and see every person, everything that happens to us. We have the awareness that it comes from Hashem. We see that it's from Hashem. We see that every challenge in front of us is from Hashem. Every person who's struggling, we can see that we are Parnasa. We can see that my Parnasa is mine, yours is yours, that I have what I need, that you're getting what you need. I could see how my food is coming to me directly from God. If I could see the source of everything, the spark of godliness in every single existence, then no animals, no humans would ever fight or be jealous or fight over anything if you can see its source and where it comes from and where it's supposed to go to and how Hashem directs everything. And so that is Umala Arsei, it's Hashem. Why did I even get to that? Because that's what this mikvah was about. And so when Noach emerged from this flood, this mikvah, Hashem dipping this world into this awareness, that was main step number 1 in transforming this world into a world that can now absorb godliness. And we see this if you look in the text, and I'll bring you a few examples that I brought you in the sources of how the world was different. Number one is that there's a lot of them, but Pruravu, the way the commandment, there's a totally different topic where Hashem commanded Adam Arishon to be fruitful and multiply, or blessed him. In the text we analyze the difference between how Hashem spoke to Adam and Hashem spoke to Noach in this pre-flood world and the post-apocalyptic world. So verse 4 is where Hashem told Adam Arishon, Pru uravu umilu es aretz v'kivshuha, and conquer it. Be fruitful and multiply, fill the earth, v'kivshu, and conquer and overpower the world, uredu, and rule over the fish of the sea and the birds of the sky and all of the land. Then a few chapters later, when Hashem tells Noach the same thing, he omits the words v'kivshu. He says to Moshe, Pru uravu, be fruitful and multiply, umilu aretz, and fill the earth and multiply, but it doesn't say to conquer the land, because before the world itself was not able to absorb godliness. The only way to deal with the world is to fight it and to overpower and to conquer, and that's the masculine in the world. And now Hashem says you don't need to Noach. He doesn't use the word conquer it, because the world is more refined. We can now imbue it with godliness. We don't need to fight with it. He also now tells Noach, until now you couldn't eat animals, but now he says he told Adam you can eat from all the plants, and to Noach he says you can eat also from the animals. And one of the reasons for that is because beforehand we were spiritually not on a higher level than animals. There was no way to elevate animals. If you're not on a higher level than animals, you can't elevate animals. But now that we're spiritually refined and everything has been elevated, now you have the potential. There's a whole other talk in vegetarianism, but now you actually have the potential to elevate animals. The animals also were so coarse they weren't even able to be elevated. Now you can elevate the spirituality within an animal, and now it's permissible to eat animals within certain guidelines, etc., and a framework. Another source, and the main one, is about the rainbow. There's a few more. If you see the difference, if you see the nuances of the instructions to Noach in this new world are completely different than before, because now the world that emerged is a world that is capable of absorbing and being connected to spirituality. And the last one is the rainbow. And so Hashem says, what is the rainbow? Why, when I show you rainbow, does it mean, first of all, Noach was afraid to have more children, like we said, because to bring children into the world, Hashem's going to destroy again. Hashem says, the rainbow will be my sign between me and you that I will never destroy the world. Now, what's the connection between the rainbow? And so the Malbim has the most beautiful teaching on the rainbow. He says it's not just a random sign Hashem picked. We actually learned that until the flood of Noach, there was never a rainbow in the sky, and not because it never rained. There rained, but there was never a rainbow, because for a rainbow to be present, this is why I'm wearing my rainbow earrings today. For a rainbow to be present, there has to be, the Malbim says, and if you look up in science, not every time there's a rain is there a rainbow. The clouds have to be not too thick. They have to be more refined so that the sunlight can get through the clouds. The water droplets have to be able to reflect the light of the sun and then reflect it back into the sky, and more things. And so before the Mabul, when the world was so spiritually blocked, whenever it rained, it would rain once in every, I forget how many years, but it would rain and the whole sky would be gray and dark and it would pour. So the clouds were too thick to allow sunlight to pass through, which reflects on the coarseness of the gashmius, of the physical nature of the world. The clouds were thick and didn't have space for kedusha, for godliness to come through them. And the water droplets weren't able to receive sunlight, which is godliness, and reflect it back. They were too coarse to be able to absorb any godliness or any light from the sun and then reflect it well, the word in science is refract the light back into the sky and create a rainbow. And that's how scientifically so it wasn't like the world didn't have a rainbow. It was physically not possible for the world to create a rainbow because the water was too coarse to absorb any of the light of the sun and reflect it back into the sky because of the coarseness of the world, and the clouds were too thick to even allow the sun to come through. And the Malbim goes through more and more steps. And so the rainbow, Hashem is saying, it's not like a sign I made up. When you see the rainbow, you will now remember, and I will remember that I will never have to destroy the world again, because even if humanity and the land and the animals reach a state of corruption as much as they did in the times of the flood, I won't have to destroy them again to make them do teshuvah, because before they weren't able to do teshuvah. There was no one to talk to. There was no one to get through to. There was just a blockage, a spiritual blockage. But now that I put the entire world through this 40-day giant mikvah and elevated them, no, there is no such thing as a darkness from here on out that is too dark for light to get through to it. There is no darkness in this world, as dark as it seems, that there is no light that can come from that and reflect that. So the rainbow is a sign to us and to Hashem that as dark as it seems, Hashem says, I'm going to be, I don't have to destroy you, because the world is now capable of, even in the darkest moments of history and the darkest things that we're experiencing in our lives, every one of us, and no matter how dark it looks outside of us, no matter who in our life we think we're talking to that we can never get through to them, which I'm sure happens with our children, our spouses, people we meet, they're like, there's just no one to talk to. This Jewish anti-Semite, there's no one to get through to. Hashem says the rainbow reminds you that it's not true, that the Mabul changed the course and the fabric of the world, that it elevated the entire world, that there is the ability for every physical creation, no matter how dark it seems, to be able to absorb and reflect light. That every darkest creation can now receive Kedusha, can now be permeated with light. We can affect it and overcome it by light. If we light up ourselves enough and use our light to light up the darkness around us, we can light up any darkness, and we can remember that no matter how dark our life seems, no matter how dark of a place we might be in, there is always the capacity for us to be able to go into that teva, to allow the waters of the flood to elevate us to a state where we will reemerge into a world where we can receive light, we can absorb Kedusha, we can have the light come through and shine on us, and we can refract that light back into the world. And that's what we're here for. We're really all here to be droplets that receive that light through the clouds after the rain, that after the flood passes, we can now finally get the light, the rainbow at the end of that rain. And the Zohar literally says that we can have Mashiach, that one of the signs of Mashiach is that there's going to be a giant rainbow in the sky. That is the sign of Mashiach, because that is the sign that our world has come to that level where there's a giant rainbow, where the whole world has finally reached what the flood was meant to do, where all the floodwaters reach us to a point where after that flooding and the anxiety and the stress is past, we now have elevated ourselves with the teva, we come out, and now we receive the light comes through the clouds, we see all of the good that came from it, we see how it elevated us, how it brought us to a higher level of existence than before, and then we take that light that shines into us and we reflect it back into the world, and that's what Mashiach is. Mashiach is the awareness of Hashem, the knowledge of Hashem. When we can all do that, reflect back the knowledge and awareness of Hashem to the world around us, and constantly we hear darkness, we just reflect more light back. when darkness and rain comes, we just wake up after the flood and just keep adding more light and reflecting more light into the situation. If someone dark in our life keeps coming, we just and darkness, someone in our life, we just keep coming back with more light, with more rainbows, with reflecting more positivity, reflecting the light that we can absorb from Hashem back to that person. And there is the capacity in the darkest situation to bring that light in. So yeah, that's that message, and that's what Mashiach is, when we'll be resubmerged in this constant awareness of Hashem. That's when we look for that rainbow, is that sign that no matter how dark it gets, we're still capable of doing teshuvah, of connecting to our inner light, and that's really that sign that Mashiach is here and ready to come. So maybe speedily in our days,
Hopefully.
may we be able to survive all the floods that come to us, to find our inner teva, our inner ark, to find that inner space, to enter that space, and to come out and reveal and create a new world. Come out, not just, the point of the ark is not to stay in that ark forever and to hide from the world and to hide from the news and to just say Tehillim. The point is that we get to that strength of the place of resiliency of our neshama, and then we come out on the earth. And then what was the directive to Noach? The first thing Hashem said 3 times in the parah: be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth with your produce. The point is not to be in the ark. The ark is there to ride over the storms, and then that elevation that the ark took us to, that high level that we've now reached, now we want to be fruitful and multiply and add more light in the world. And that is what we keep reminding ourselves, that no matter how much darkness we face, the way we fight darkness is not by engaging with the darkness at all. It's completely ignoring all the darkness and just adding in more light. Be fruitful and multiply our light into the world. We literally completely shut down. We don't answer the trolls, we don't answer the anti-Semites, we don't even engage in that. We just tune them out and say, all I need to do to banish tons of darkness is just show that I'm adding more light. And it speaks for itself when we continue to add in more acts of chesed, to add in our connection to in each mitzvah that are the most important mitzvahs, in taras and mishpacha, being stronger in kashrus, in Shabbos, in kindness to another person, in just small ways, and reaching out to one person every day to check on them and see how they're doing, someone who you think might need an extra bit of chizuk. When we keep adding that light, that action of adding light banishes way more darkness than answering 100 messages of anti-Semites online and writing, online. Way more impactful. And so that is our directive. So first, to remember that the flood waters are there to elevate us. Number 2, to survive the flood, to enter into the teva, to come into that space of bitachon and being with Hashem, remembering Hashem around us, fortifying our neshama. And then the main thing is being fruitful and multiply. Pruvu doesn't mean to have only children. It means to multiply our light and that love, and reflect that love back like the rainbow back into the world around us. L'chaim. Thank you for joining. Have an amazing week, and I'll see you next week. If you enjoyed the share, please comment so I know that you listened to it. Share with your friends, and you can always sponsor a share in honor of any special occasion or memory of a loved one.
Go ahead.